Before I tell you how my daughter-in-law tried to turn my home into a boarding house for her family, let me paint you a picture. Imagine you are sitting at your own kitchen table, the one you built with your own hands from a kit you ordered 30 years ago, and a woman who has known you for less than 4. Years looks you in the eye and tells you, not asks, tells you, that her sister's entire family will be sleeping in your guest rooms by the end of the week. She says it the way someone announces a flight departure. Gate 7. Boards at noon. Non-negotiable. And your son, your only son, is standing just behind her left shoulder, studying the tile grout like it contains the answer to a question nobody asked. That was the moment I understood that love, if you are not careful, can be used against you like a key someone copied without your knowledge. Before the story gets darker, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments what city you are watching from. Because betrayal does not always come from strangers. Sometimes it sits at your kitchen table, calls you Dad, and waits for you to stop breathing. My name is Walter Greer. I am 61 years old. I spent 28 years working as a finishing carpenter in Clover Ridge, Tennessee, a small town east of Nashville, where the hills roll green in spring and the winters arrive without much ceremony. I framed doorways and laid hardwood floors in houses all across the county, some of them worth more than I would earn in a decade. I did not resent that. I understood that a craftsman builds what others will own, and there is dignity in that if you let there be. My hands still carry the evidence of those years. Knuckles that never fully straightened, a scar along my right thumb from a table saw in 1998 that I am quietly proud of. My wife, Donna, passed away 3 years ago from a long illness that took her slowly and then all at once. We had been married 33 years. She was the one who kept the house warm in every sense of the word. After she was gone, I kept the house because leaving felt like agreeing that she was truly finished, and I was not ready to agree to that. What I had built in Clover Ridge was not spectacular by any measure. A 3-bedroom house on a half-acre, fully paid off. A workshop in the back where I still built things for myself. A vegetable garden Donna had started that I maintained because I knew she would have wanted someone to. That was my life. Quiet. Earned. Mine. My son Marcus is 32. He married a woman named Priya about 2.5 years ago. I liked Priya well enough at first. She was confident, organized, worked in logistics for a regional shipping company. She had a way of taking charge in a room that I mistook for competence. It was something closer to appetite. Her older sister, Renata, lived an hour north with a husband named Doug and 3 children under the age of 10. From what I gathered in small comments over family dinners, Renata and Doug had been cycling through financial problems for some time. Work, instability, a car repossession, a lease that had apparently ended badly. The first time Priya mentioned them to me directly, it was framed lightly. She said Renata was going through a hard stretch. She said it the way you mention weather. Casual. Informational. I said I was sorry to hear it and passed the bread rolls. I should have paid closer attention to the way she watched my face when she said it. It started with small orbits. Priya began asking questions about my house that did not fit any obvious conversation. How many square feet was the 2nd bedroom? Did the basement stay warm in winter? Had I thought about what I would do with all that space once Marcus and she moved farther out? Each question came wrapped in pleasant tone, spaced weeks apart, easy to dismiss individually. Then Renata and Doug appeared at a Sunday family lunch I hosted in October. I had not been told they were coming. Priya introduced them cheerfully, as if their presence needed no explanation. Doug shook my hand with the grip of a man auditioning for something. Renata complimented my kitchen at length. I was polite. I was also watching. After that, they came to 2 more Sunday gatherings. Each time, Renata made a point of lingering in the hallway near the guest rooms, asking about the view from the window, commenting on the quiet of the neighborhood. I began to feel the shape of something I could not yet name. In November, Marcus called me alone and asked, gently, carefully, whether I had given any thought to having family closer by. He said Priya's sister was really struggling. He said the kids needed stability. He said it with the voice of a man who has been rehearsing a speech but still hopes the audience will interrupt before he reaches the hard part. I told him I loved him and that I would think about anything he brought to me honestly. What I did not say was that I had already started thinking, and what I was thinking was that something was being constructed around me without my participation. The Tuesday it crystallized came by accident, the way most important things do. I had stepped into the hallway outside the kitchen to retrieve my reading glasses and stopped when I heard Priya's voice from the living room. She was on the phone. She did not know I was in the house. I had come back early from a hardware run. She was talking to Renata. I did not intend to listen, but I heard her clearly before I could move. She said, and I will carry these words for the rest of my life, he won't say no once they're already there. He is too soft for it. Just get the truck reserved. There was a pause. Then, I have already told him yes on your behalf. He just doesn't know it yet. I stood in that hallway for approximately 10 seconds. Then, I walked quietly back to the garage, got in my truck, and sat in the driveway for a long time. I was not angry in the way people expect anger to look. I was cold, precise. I felt the way I feel when a measurement is off, and I understand exactly what needs to be corrected before anything else is cut. I drove to see my attorney, a man named Bill Cathcart, who had handled Donna's estate and had been my neighbor's lawyer for 20 years. I sat in his office that same afternoon and laid out everything I knew. He listened without interrupting. Bill told me my options were clear. My home was solely in my name. No one had legal standing to invite guests to reside there without my explicit consent. He drafted a letter I could use if needed. He also advised me to document everything going forward. That evening, I began writing in a yellow legal pad. Dates, conversations, the phone call I had overheard, the pattern of Sunday visits, the questions about square footage. I wrote it all in my carpenter's handwriting, small and deliberate. I also called my neighbor Gus, who has known me since before Marcus was born, and I told him what was happening. Gus is 68 and has the particular usefulness of a man who has seen everything and judges nothing. I said nothing to Marcus, nothing to Priya. I returned to my routines. I mowed the lawn. I tended Donna's garden. I waited. On a Saturday morning, 10 days later, Priya and Marcus arrived at my house together. A moving truck idled on the street behind them. Renata's minivan was parked directly behind it. Doug was in the driveway already, hands in his pockets, looking at the house the way a man looks at something he believes is already his. Priya smiled at me on the porch. She said Renata's family needed to get their things inside before it got dark. She used the word settled several times. She spoke entirely in logistics. I let her finish. Then I said, quietly and without drama, that no one would be bringing anything inside. I told her I was aware of the conversation she had with Renata 11 days ago. I told her I had met with my attorney. I held up the document Bill had prepared, which formally stated that no tenancy agreement of any kind existed and that any attempt to establish residency without my written consent would be pursued legally. Priya's smile did not fade immediately. It thinned. Then it stopped. She looked at the paper. She looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at me with something in his face that was not betrayal exactly. It was closer to relief. Doug had taken a single step toward the truck before he stopped. He seemed to understand before anyone else said anything that the truck would not be unloaded today. I looked at Priya and said only this: a promise made without my voice is not a promise. It is a plan. Renata and Doug moved the truck that afternoon. Gus had come to stand in his own driveway, visible, present, not intervening, but witnessing. It mattered more than I expected. Bill Cathcart sent a formal letter to Priya the following week outlining the legal consequences of any further attempts to represent my property as available. He was specific and thorough in the way good attorneys are. Renata and Doug eventually found a subsidized apartment through a county assistance program 2 towns over. I learnt this from Marcus, who told me several weeks later with the subdued voice of someone sorting through the wreckage of something they helped build. The matter required no courtroom. The documentation I had prepared, combined with Bill's letter, was sufficient. When Priya understood that the paper trail existed and that it was detailed and current, the pressure stopped as completely as a faucet turned off. Marcus came to see me alone on a cold Sunday in January. He sat at my kitchen table and did not reach for excuses. He said he had allowed himself to be managed and that he had known, somewhere underneath it, that what was being done to me was wrong, and he had not stopped it. I did not perform forgiveness. I told him it was there when he was ready for it, and that I was his father regardless of what had happened. After he left, I went to the workshop and built a small shelf I had been planning for the hallway, measuring, cutting, fitting, the particular calm of work that requires your full attention. Outside the workshop window, Donna's rosebush was bare against the January light, but the canes were sound. They had come through the freeze intact. That detail struck me as important, though I could not have said exactly why. Some things hold because they were built right at the beginning. Some things hold because no one ever successfully convinced them to let go. Here is what I know now. At 61, standing in a house I paid for with decades of careful work. Kindness is not the same as availability. Loving someone does not mean surrendering the architecture of your own life to whatever they decide to build inside it. The people who dress entitlement in the language of family need are not asking you to be generous. They are asking you to be absent from your own story. I was not willing to be absent. And neither should you be. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and leave your city in the comments. It means more than you know. I will see you in the next one.